Oh, hey Otter, what game are you discovering today?
Oh, that hurts. Even if you know nothing about gaming, you've probably heard the name of Otters Creed. At this point, you either know it from the huge, spanning franchise that has gotten a reputation for being yearly buggy pieces of crap that Ubisoft rushes out, or the new movie that recently came out that might be good. I haven't seen it. But let's see the game that started everything, simply known as Otters Creed. Pretty simple naming convention. This game is quick to set up the framework for this game. It's a bit confusing, so try to pay attention, because the game itself will never be clear about anything. You're a young man named Desmond, a descendant of the Assassins. The Assassins are an order that has long fought against the Templars and still exists to this day. Lost yet as to why Templars exist today? Welcome to this franchise. You have been kidnapped by the company Abstergo and are being forced to use a machine called the Animus to relive the memories of your ancestor Altair. What you're looking for, why you're reliving things, what is going on, none of that makes any sense, and barely will at the end of the game, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. Inside of the memories, Altair has been sent to steal some artifacts from the Templars, but instead he places the mission at risk and is defeated. He runs back to his home, but the enemies have followed him to the gates. You complete the game's tutorial of fighting and movements to defeat them and drive them off, whereupon the Master stabs you in the stomach and kills you for your traitorous actions against the Brotherhood. And then you wake back up, because apparently stabs in the belly are just a formality for these killers. You have been stripped of your rank and charged with killing 9 men who are causing death and pain across the Middle East. Or at least in 3 cities in the Middle East. Luckily, they don't have the artifact, as one of your companions you thought had died managed to steal it instead. Wait, that orb of power looks very familiar. The game now settles into a pattern. You arrive at the city wherein the man you need to kill lives. You beat up the guards outside who are tormenting an old man. This will spawn a group of wandering scholars. Blend in amongst them, walk past the city guards, and into the city. Now that you're in the city, climb the tall buildings marked on your mini-map to reveal mini-quests all around the city. Most of these will be citizens the game wants you to save, and this is a complete waste of time. To save them, you kill the guards attacking them. This will draw in all guards near them. The reward? To be able to have a distraction to help escape guards you're running away from. Now that you have killed all the guards in this area, that doesn't do much. The other missions are all requirements to continue the game. You cannot simply stab your victim, you have to learn about them, their habits, their actions, how best to get at them. These missions can be as simple as sitting on a bench and eavesdropping, or the easiest pickpocketing minigame ever, or they can be as hard as following a mark until they're away from guards and starting up a fistfight, or pulling off 2 murders with a perfect constant stealth the entire time. Now I know neither of those sound that difficult, until you try them. Firstly, it's almost impossible to stay stealthed. Causing any kind of death will alert every person near you. Even if guards don't see you kill the person, they can somehow instantly pick you out of a crowd. What gave it away? The sword on my back and knives in my belt that you didn't seem to notice when I walked in with the innocent scholars? You could always blend in and avoid pretty much ever being detected, but you move incredibly slowly. When you try to do that, this ceases to be a game and is just a test of your patience. On top of that, the guards are naturally suspicious of you. Heaven help you if you get on a roof, but at least that's something actually unusual in life. What they'll really nail you for is if you run in public.
Good morning, Worm, Your Honor. The prisoner who now stands before you was caught red-handed running in public.
Running in public?
Yes, sir. Incontrovertible! There is no need for the jury to retire. Send this man to the gallows!
And then there's the stupid NPCs. There's drunks and crazies that will shove you if you're anywhere near them. This forces you to break your blending and alerts nearby guards. A drunk guy shoved him. Whoa, that's suspicious. Then there's beggars who block your path and there's no way around them without breaking blend. Worst of all, though, are the jar women. Supposedly, if you bump into them, they'll violently drop their jars and alert nearby guards. In reality, if you stand or move anywhere remotely close to a jar woman, she'll drop it. Yeah, you could just be standing still, she bumps into you and drops her jar. She's a full few feet away from you, drops her jar. Do you really need her not to drop that stupid jar to make it out of here and finish this submission that you've been spending almost an hour on? Oh, she will drop that jar.
Another one, Your Honor. Was this one running in public too? No, he bumped a jar woman. A jar woman? Ah! just saved us all!
Fist fights, on the other hand, are incredibly frustrating on two fronts. Firstly, this may be enough to annoy the guards that you haven't seen and make them attack you. The game tries to tell you to use this mark next to your bar to know when guards are around. A yellow eye means a guard is watching you, a red eye means they're suspicious of you, blend in. But your mark is somehow aware of your presence, and this will cause a yellow eye too. So what's the difference between him and the guards? Even if there is no guard nearby, random citizens and street thugs will join in the fight. Where are you most likely to find street thugs? In back alleys where no guards are. What a coincidence! That's where you're supposed to start these little fights. Secondly, the fighting controls are horrible in this game. Trying to attack is clunky and unwieldy. You can't really attack to kill guards because they'll block, and for 90% of the game where you could really use an attack to break through blocking, such a move doesn't exist. So instead you have two options. The first is to grab a guard and then throw them to the ground and then kill them. This works if you're fighting one-on-one, but as soon as there's two guards, you will be attacked while you throw. So in reality, your one and only option is to stand still holding down the block button, waiting for your enemy to attack you first. Then you time when to press the counter button and hopefully you'll perform a lethal counter. If you press the button a moment too late, you'll simply block. If you press it a moment too early, you're wide open and will be damaged. And some of these swings are incredibly hard to read. For instance, what's the difference between these two attacks? Well, nothing on the wind-up, but the timing is completely different for blocking. Every fight is so slow, boring, and pointless that there's no point in trying to run away and hide. It's also so hard to get away from the fight even if you wanted to, that unless the fight was required for the main story, you may as well put down the controller and let the guards kill you as soon as you've been found. So you have to complete several of these missions, and then you check in at the Assassin's Guild. The Guild Master will then give you permission to carry out your kill, then you sneak up to the person and take them out. For the first mission, this is nice and simple. From thereafter, it's impossible to sneak up on your target. For instance, in the mental asylum, one of your targets runs, and you cannot go unnoticed because it's full of crazies who will shove you. Other missions will force you into fights with your target, and you have to chase them down through the city. Still others will make you sneak into an area, which gives them all the time to run away because we've discussed how the sneaking works in this game. The worst assassination mission of the main game, however, is when you have to hunt down a man who's hiding out in a ship. You will have to sneak your way across the water from pole to boat to boat. If you jump into the water, you will instantly be killed and sent back to the last save point. But the controls in this game are so tight, and there's no way you'll jump into the water unless you're an idiot, right? Yeah, you will jump into the water. That is not an option. There's no real story being conveyed in these missions either. Each man seems to feel they are helping the greater good and are seemingly connected, but this series really likes being vague and keeping the player as much in the dark as Altair. But all the twists that will be coming up at the end of the game are incredibly predictable. You can probably guess all the twists now, so go ahead and guess. You don't even need to guess them all. As you go to assassinate the final target, the man you attacked at the start of the game, it's very clear a trap is being set up. You're forced into a huge, long fight. I eventually worked out the best way to fight back.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
Yeah, just run to an isolated roof, stake your claim upon that roof, and attack the fools who come up there until you're shoved, thrown, or simply fall off to the floor below. Repeat until the guards stop coming and you can assassinate your target. But this whole time, something's been off. Here's the voice of the man we're assassinating.
I spare you only that you may return to your master and deliver a message.
And here's the voice of the person in that helmet. Yeah, we leap on them and assassinate them, only for it to turn out that's not the target. Who could have possibly guessed? So we refuse to kill this random woman. Wait, we already stabbed her, didn't we? Nope, fit as a fiddle now. So there's two more things to complain about before we get to the climax of the game. When you enter a city for the second time, it's incredibly confusing unless you're using one of these wonderful strategy guides, which I tried not to for this playthrough of the game. Each city has 3 districts, but your first time into that city, you can only access the main district. Well, on your second time in, all the missions you'll need are in another district. But there's nothing that ever tells you that you need to go to another district. Even if you go out of your way and ask the guildmaster for advice, he just names parts of the city, as if we are intimately familiar with the geographical and city layout of the ancient Holy Land cities. By the way, even if you are weird and are that kind of historian, these cities aren't historically accurate, so give up on that now. That might not be a big deal if they ever gave you any kind of names and just expected you to sleuth, but no information like that is ever available. So the last time you entered a city, everywhere that you could enter was lit up. Even when you were outside the city, you had a mini-map that lit up for the areas you could access, and the towers were marked. On the world map, towers to unlock more of the map have still been marked, so you can find them and have a general idea of where to go. But for this second time into the city, you have to magically know to run towards an area of your map that is blacked out and was inaccessible to you the last time you were here. Once there, you have to visually scan for a building that might be a vision point, climb it, and synchronize to get a tiny part of your map. That is not information that the players can be expected to know. And yet, when you have to look it up online, people are condescending as to why so many stupid gamers can't figure this out, commenting you'll have to use your eyes for once and actually play a game. Hey, condescending asshat. Maybe I'd have done that if at any point in this game it gave me an indication I needed to do that and everything I needed wouldn't be specifically marked out on the minimap for the express purpose that I shouldn't waste my time doing that. You know what else? There's no way to know which sector I'm allowed into until I ram my face into the magical blue wall of stopping. And the visual design of each city is so cluttered that it can be hard to tell what will be a climbing point right away, even once you do look. Secondly is moving from city to city. The first time you access a city, the game will make you ride there all the way on horse. The cities at least have some pretext of content in them, even if it's all just repeated boring side quests followed by broken boss kills. But in the open world map, there's towers that you can climb to see the map. Cool. What else?
Well, look, another viewpoint tower.
Ubisoft, what else is in this game that people loved it so much and it became a prolific series?
Well, there's flags and Templars that are hidden around.
Huh, and what do those do?
Completion?
Yeah, so there's nothing of actual use or substance in this whole open map area. Why? Why did you waste our time and yours? Like, you had to put in developers and hours to create this world, to put down the pieces, even if it didn't take that long because of how little is in it. That took time, and it took the players' time as well as yours. There's the reason right there, actually. The players' time.
This game clocks in at a bit over 10 hours, and almost all of it is repetitive and designed to slow the player down. Once again, we see the bane of my existence, padding. Game play that only exists to help brag about how long your game is, so you don't have to reveal how little content is actually in your game. And while I'm complaining about the in-animus game, let's look at one final thing, the cutscenes. Ubisoft attempted to be innovative back in the day by creating cutscenes where the player was still moving around in the game as the cutscene ran. But at some point they realized that the cutscenes lacked any real tension or engagement when you're just watching with your character's model's head in the way, and any excitement the player might have will die off as soon as they find the invisible wall that keeps them out of the cutscene's area limits despite nothing actually being in their way. So, to keep the player from zoning out and ignoring their cutscenes, sometimes there will be visual glitches that tell the player to hit any button to change the viewpoint of the cutscene. This will temporarily move the camera and give them a real cutscene. Also, in several cutscenes, the player can press any button to move to different camera angles at any moment. No, none of the cutscenes are usually any good. And I understand the idea behind this glitch thing. Oh, you're in a machine. It's a frame story. Aren't we so clever? Yeah, here's the thing. In a frame story, the idea is to aid in immersion while you're inside, not constantly remind the reader you're in a story within a story. That outer story is usually pretty poorly developed and boring as sin, and it's really no different in this game. Secondly, any amount of immersion the developer felt the glitch effect created for being in the animus is cancelled out by the cutscene jumping around. I'm not listening to your cutscene. I'm watching for that effect so that I can actually see something other than the back of my useless assassin's head that I've been staring at for hours. If you want live action, fine. Program it in a way that lets us interrupt or interact or see it better. If you don't want to or can't, then actually make it a cutscene. it'd be more engaging, more interesting, and more fun to watch than this cobbled mishmash. So what about the Outer Frame story? Our assassin self in the modern age? Well, the Templars still exist today and have actually been pretty responsible for everything that has happened in human history, as well as every piece of technological advancement. They simply chose who to give the credit to so that no one would suspect as history went on. They are searching for the magical ball that Altair failed to steal at the start of the game and begin a new world. Bits of information can be gleaned by talking to the Animus' operator, Lucy. She's just as much of a captive as yourself, and she shows you in one cutscene that she's an assassin as well. The hidden emails say help is coming, but the game ends without your being rescued. You can break into her computer, into the doctor's computer, and at the end of the game you can even break into the computer in the lounge area that you could only see through a window until this point. What any of the information in those computers means, though? Yeah, that's all convoluted, and I have a feeling it would make more sense with the other Assassin's Creed games to give it context. As it stands, it comes across as pretentious and begging to be interpreted, so I'm going to ignore it. You cannot run when not inside the Animus, which drags the game out even further. The walking speed in this game is much closer to a meander. The blending speed is well below what a crippled man could crawl at.
But remember, our game is long. That means there's something going on inside it.
So back inside the Animus, the first big twist is revealed. That your Mark is meeting with King Richard, intending to bring all of the crusading armies against the assassins, as well as the locals. You rush to stop him and intervene before your brotherhood is destroyed. So the developers had to figure out a way to make this part of the game feel tense, to amp up the energy and bring this game to a boiling climax. So how do you do this in a game that pretends to focus on stealthy assassination, where if that fails, you're probably better off putting down the controller and being sent back than engaging in combat? Well, what better way than with wave after wave of forced combat?
Ubisoft, you made a franchise out of this? This is what you used to spawn such a long-lived and loved series? Your combat system is horrible. I'll spell it out for you. H-O-R, horrible. It was something to be avoided in the game at all costs. But that was fine. You could put up with it because that wasn't the point of the game. The point was to be stealthy. The point was to not get into combat.
This is not a beat-em-up game, and yet that's what it turned into for the big climax of your game. Did the lead designer of most of the game die at his desk? And when you hired a replacement, did he pick up their game notes, read the combat section, and then put the game notes back down and start programming? So after you sludge your way through waves of foes that you have to defeat to move on, you catch up to King Richard, pleading your case that your Mark is the traitor to his cause and that his men intended to murder the king and seize power. He decides that the only real way to decide who is right is to let God decide by having a fight to the death between you and your Mark. Whereupon your Mark sends in a giant team of enemies because that's how a 1v1 fight works, you guys. Once you kill all of them, you can finally fight him. You can't hurt him with your sword. Instead, you have to counter his attack, so you throw him on the ground. Then you have to swap to your hidden blade on the fly, since you can't do the fight with the hidden blade out, and assassinate him before he gets back up, which is an incredibly small window and functions unlike any other part of the game. As he dies, he reveals that he didn't discover the artifact alone, your master helped discover it, and then used you to betray and kill his co-conspirators. Your master was in on their plan the entire time. Richard congratulates you, but you ignore him and rush back to your home, where the Master has used the Orb of Power to take over everyone's minds. So you must defeat him. First, he makes you take down a mob of all 9 men you already killed. As you kill each, they turn back into a civilian, revealing the illusion. Finally, he faces you, and it's time to kill your Master. And the fight begins. Every time you land a blow on the Master, he makes the screen trip out and runs away. You have to hunt him down and hit him again to make it stop. Then he attacks you again, and this process is repeated 4 times. Oh Lord in heaven, my eyes. This is a big garden. Your first time playing this, you will have no way of knowing where he's gone in here either. It's like the designer wanted it to be hard for you to find him, but not actually hide him, so they just made it impossible to actually look at your physical screen. This part of the game literally gave me a migraine trying to play it. You'll also notice that I put up a seizure warning. You couldn't have missed it. You know what this game didn't do? This scene is just on top of you without any warning. They don't even have a warning in the game. All they have is this stupid little label on the back of the box. So, in a game where they felt they needed to put this scene in, All they felt was necessary was the bare minimum warning required to cover their ass from a lawsuit. I haven't seen this level of human decency and care for the disabled since my last time at an airport terminal, as everybody gave the man in a wheelchair death glares as he was let on first. So you shank the old man finally and put an end to that screen effect, and the magic ball shows a map of the world. You're yanked back out of the Animus as the doctor talks to some voice about the locations. He wants to kill you, but Lucy points out they may still need you, so don't kill you until they're sure. She leaves after telling you it'll be okay soon and leaving you to go back to your room. You turn on your special assassin vision, look above your bed, and there's writing scrawled all over the walls from the assassin they kidnapped before you.
So what's it all mean? Who knows? Once again, it's being pretentious and demanding to be interpreted, and I'm not going to give it the pleasure. So in conclusion, I have to again ask, this is what this long-lasting series was built off of? On top of everything else I've said, it hasn't aged very well.
The animations and models looked great back in the day, but now it mostly looks like everybody either has jaundice or shingles. The movements as you jump feel like everything comes to a complete halt, especially when riding the horse, which really hurts the engagement in a game that emphasizes motion and stealth. The ability to climb anything is hindered by unclear context on what can and cannot be climbed. For instance, some windows with metal latticework Altair will grab onto easily and climb up. Others are treated as the same flat, blank piece of wall for no discernible reason. And yes, Altair, I wanted to run up that ladder as if it was part of the wall and fall back down with nothing to grab onto. Ladders certainly aren't meant to be climbed and definitely don't have any rungs that could be grabbed after running up it. Piles of hay are useless, and you'll never lose pursuers while you're in the streets, and if you do, there's too few bales of hay to actually lose them as you reach one. I don't see any reason to play this game whatsoever. The convoluted, deliberately vague story has been, I can only hope, fleshed out and explained in future series offerings, and the only thing that you'll miss by skipping the first game is who Desmond is, so here it is. He was a bartender, he grew up in the desert, he wasn't allowed to leave or use technology, he rides a motorcycle, Abstergo kidnapped him. The end. There is only one good thing about this game. The rush as you leap off a super tall building with that eagle noise. And you can get that in all of these series games.
Now, go play something worth playing while I regret my life decisions.
What a boring pile of crap. If anything, a boring game is infinitely worse than a bad game, because a bad game gives me an excuse to give up and leave, and a boring game I just have to keep slogging through. Though we shouldn't have that in next week's game, whether it's bad or good, I'll leave for you to discover when you see it. So until then, remember, life is always another game waiting to be discovered.
Was this one running in public too? A jaw woman! Ah! Thank goodness I saved us in time!